For this project you'll need paper, a pen and a pencil, a ruler which I forgot to film, scissors and a scalpel for cutting, a water-based glue stick, 2 scrap pieces of fabric, one for the background and one for your letters, heavyweight iron-on interfacing, lightweight iron-on interfacing, a sewing machine with a zigzag function, and thread. Start by marking out the finished size on your piece of paper. I'm using a quilting ruler, so I'm working in inches, and I chose 3.5 inches as my final size. When it's all been marked out, you want to cut it out using scissors. Take your ruler again and divide the piece of paper into 4 quadrants, one for each of your letters. Obviously you need to decide what word you're going to choose for your 4-letter patch. There's lots of good 4-letter words. I chose done because that's how I feel in January 2021, but you can choose any 4-letter word you like. Sketch it out in pencil and then go over your lines in pen so it's easy to see them. Then carefully cut them out. You can use scissors or a scalpel for this. Here I've got my heavyweight interfacing. You can see the shiny side, that's the side that you want to hold against the fabric when you iron it on. Cut it down to exactly the same size as your paper. You can do this using a ruler and a pencil to mark it out and then cutting with scissors if you don't have a rotary cutter, but a rotary cutter makes a really nice straight edge. Here we are at the ironing board with our background piece of fabric. You want your iron set to about a medium heat, no steam. Press your fabric, then place the heavyweight interfacing down with the shiny side against the fabric. That's your glue. Slowly press the iron across the surface of it. This is going to help melt the glue. It can take a while with heavyweight interfacing, so don't worry if it takes a few passes. And when you've done one side, it's good practice to flip it over and then iron from the other side. Back on the cutting mat, you want to cut down your background fabric so it's the same size as that piece of interfacing that we ironed onto it. Again, rotary cutters makes this really easy, but you can just do it by marking with a ruler and then cutting with scissors. Check that the piece of fabric you've chosen for your lettering is the right size by laying out your paper letters on it, and then roughly cut a piece of lightweight interfacing to match the size of that. Then we're going to press our lettering piece, place the lightweight interfacing over. You want the glue dots down, they're rough, they should be against the fabric. And then gently and quickly press with your iron. It doesn't take much at all to stick that glue on there with the lightweight interfacing. Be careful you don't iron any overhanging bits because you will get glue on your iron. Now it's time to use our paper letters as a template, so make sure you flip them when you place them down on your lettering fabric so that they're mirrored. And then using a pen, this is a heat erase pen, but you can use any pen really, just be careful it doesn't bleed onto your fabric. Trace around your template, one by one for each letter. Now it's time to carefully cut your letters out. So just get in there with scissors. It's much easier to use scissors rather than a scalpel for this fabric. Even stabilised fabric is just really difficult to cut with a scalpel, so stick to scissors. It's really important to make sure our letters don't shift around when we're sewing, and it's near impossible to hold them down with pins. It's just too fiddly, you'll get stabbed and they'll shift anyway. So you just want to take a water-based glue stick. You can get special temporary fabric adhesive, but literally a Pritt stick works just as well. Just pop it on the back of your letters and stick them onto the background, and it'll hold them in place while we're sewing in a moment. See, no chance of shifting with them stuck like this. Thread your machine with a nice contrasting thread. You can pick one of the colours from your background, or black and white always works pretty well. And then you want to set your machine to a zigzag stitch, which is number 4 on my machine. You want to set the width to 2.5 and the stitch length to as low as you can get, but above 0, which on my machine is 0.5, and I'm just adjusting the speed at the end there. Line things up so that when your needle is on the right hand side of the zigzag, it's just going over the lettering fabric. And away we go sewing. When you get to a corner, you want to pop down your needle, raise your presser foot and pivot things around. Make sure you sew around the inside of any letters that have an inner edge, such as D, O, R, all those inside bits. You don't need to cut your threads in between finishing each section. Continue around all your letters in the same way. You want to make sure when you get to the end of an outline you reverse, or whatever your machine has, if it has a stop function where you're doing the same stitch over and over, just so it locks those threads in place and won't unravel when it's finished. And when all the sewing's done on the letters, you want to take some scissors and just cut off your loose threads. They'll be zigzagging across the whole surface, just trim them back. Flip your patch over and do exactly the same on the reverse as well to neaten things up. Change your stitch width from 2.5 to 3. This will just make it a little tiny bit wider for doing the edge. Line things up so that your needle on the right will be hanging in free space. It won't be going through any fabric. It'll be going through all the layers on the left, and just start sewing round. When you get to a corner, make sure that needle's on the outside edge, pivot and keep on the same way. And then when you get back to the point that you started on, you want to go around one more time. When you've been around twice, lock your stitch in place with a reverse stitch, and then simply trim your threads. If you notice any gaps in your stitching and you're a bit of a perfectionist, what you can do is take a fabric pen and just fill them in so they're not showing through the stitches. That's what I'm doing here. There was just a couple of bald spots on the corners, and it just helps keep it to a really nice, neat finish. That's this patch done, as it says. And now you just need to choose where to put it. I think it looks nice on my ukulele case. You can put them on jacket sleeves, bags, anywhere else you can think of. Now you know how to make a patch. Please share them with me on Instagram. You can tag me at @roomade_this. I'd love to see what you make.